of Ghana as a whole, both Muslims and other existing faiths that we live with. This is a time where the Muslims have a sacred relationship with God, and it's a 29-30 day long period that we fast and observe this month with strict holiness. And so let me take this opportunity to wish all my brothers and sisters in Islam Ramadan Kareem. And indeed, this is the first time, David, since 1863 that Lent, the Lunar New Year, and then Ramadan have clashed on the same day.
Oh.
Yes, since 1863. We've never had that.
I see.
Yes.
1863.
The Christians are observing Lent, the Chinese are observing their Lunar New Year, and the Muslims are observing Ramadan on the same day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the first time since 1863. So this year is quite significant.
Wow.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Also with us here is Comrade Uncle Bernard Muna. He's the leader of the PNC. Good morning, Comrade.
Good morning.
And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so let's start off with our discussion. We want to start off with our African story. We want to concentrate more on the issues that really happened in Parliament yesterday, where there was a divide as to what, could be the factors that led to the attacks on 7 Ghanaians that led to their death. In fact, the minority were suggesting, from their summations, that they felt that Ghanaians have become objects of, attacks because of our dealings with Burkina Faso. So we're just asking, is it trade, terror, and diplomacy? We want to look at Ghana's role in all this, especially in addition to the new body that's coming up, the Sahel, area. We seem to be embodied by all these countries, and yet we, current situation doesn't really point to a very good standing. What are the diplomatic issues that we can learn out of it in terms of trade, and then also look at the terror that seems to be unfolding right in our eyes? I want to start with you, Doc, on this one. We still keep talking about issues with Burkina Faso. They are neighboring countries. Are we heading towards a diplomatic fast, so to speak, with Burkina, looking at the turn-up of events? Yesterday also in Parliament there was this argument that, look, so far we've not had a Minister of Defense gone into that country to even look at what is happening. Normally what would have happened would be maybe travel advisory, when we knew that these were the issues confronting Burkina Faso, especially when they are our neighbors. These two issues came up tops. Could that affect our relations with Burkina?
Well, David, let me say good morning to you. And let me start off by commending the Ghanaian media for upholding to some level of maturity when discussing this menace. Unlike the Western media, there has been a modern neologism for jihadists or jihadism. And people have tried as much as possible to connect jihadism with some form of extremism, Muslims holding guns, trying as much as possible to establish an Islamic caliphate. That is absolutely not true. What happened in Burkina Faso is an act of terrorism and not jihadism. They are not jihadists, they are not Muslim, but they are terrorists. And I must commend Pan-African Television together with your sister stations on how you have been able to, sell out the narrative of this story and the words you use carefully. I think that I must commend you for that. David, I would start off by saying that the president of our land, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, has won some hearts with the way and manner in which he's tackling the Sahelian states. Why am I saying that? When he came into office, he appointed a special envoy, more like an ambassador, who diplomatic rifts and tension. I can say that it is quite better than the previous administration. We're doing quite better in terms of how we communicate. I also concur to the fact that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should have issued, or not only them, even the embassy of Ghana in Burkina Faso should have issued a travel alert to the general public on the situation in Burkina Faso. Unfortunately, we did not see that. So we have to really, blame them for that lapse. Because you quite know that the United States has systems in place that advises its citizens through its online portals and even its various medias on, countries that are high risk for its citizens to travel to.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, our embassy didn't do that. The Ministry for Foreign Affairs didn't do that. And unfortunately, 7 of our innocent compatriots lost their lives. I want to take this opportunity to send my condolences to their families, and indeed, hopefully, such calamity will not befall any citizen of Ghana in the near future. David, our borders should not be only lines of protection, but also development. I think that the Ghana-Burkina Faso border needs some form of development to be able to mitigate the issues of terrorism trickling down into Ghana. Unfortunately for us, the Sahelian region has been destabilized. And this, I will point out to one significant conduit that caused this mess. It is all the doing of the United States and then NATO. Gaddafi was the buffer between the north and then the south, where his army was very well equipped and they could, take up the shocks of these small groups that were disturbing the Sahelian region. He neutralized them. During Gaddafi's era, you did not hear any act of terrorism whatsoever, even in Burkina Faso. Talk about even Mali or even Niger. But after the downfall of Gaddafi, you could see that today in Boku, there is some form of arms trade from the Sahelian region coming into Boku. There's a trade corridor for arms now from the Sahelian region coming into Boku, and it poses a big national security risk to the people of Ghana. And so, David, together with ECOWAS, I think that this is the time we need to have an amalgamation of our various intelligence units and security units and contribute some form of money to support the establishment of a unified unit for ECOWAS to counter terrorism within the sub-region. If we want to really deal with terrorism, because it is no longer a Burkinabe problem, it is no longer a Malian problem or Nigerian problem or Nigerian problem. It is a West African problem and indeed an African problem. And it will take the collective effort of each and every state within West Africa to counter this acts of terrorism. I know that the effects of climate change is also having an impact on the Burkinabes up north and even the Malians. And that is why today, if you look at their demography, those that were gaining from the agrarian economy are now shifting towards terrorism, because that is where they can get bread and butter as a result of climate change. What is the United Nations under the COPEC and then that of the Paris Climate Accord doing to support our sub-region in mitigating the anthropogenic effects of climate change? Because we contribute less to greenhouse gases, but yet still we suffer its effects terribly. And I think that if the UN and of course African Union should be a vehicle to lobby and fight for the suffering of these farmers within these sub-regions, because China pollutes, the US pollutes, Europe pollutes. We do not even have the industrial base to pollute, to emit greenhouse gases. Yet still we are suffering the most from this effect. And so it will take a lot from the governance level to bilateral relations to bring some form of cushion to these farmers that are suffering as a result of climate change. Because then, if nothing is being done, they don't have water to do what we call, around year harvesting. Then they would have to link themselves or be recruited by these terrorists to earn a living. And that is what is happening. The result of climate change is also contributed to terrorism within the Sahelian region. So I think that it is very, very important for our regional blocs to come together to find an amicable solution in regards to that as well. David, Ghana has more arable land to feed the whole of West Africa. And I'm talking about the 5 northern regions in Ghana. The 5 northern regions in Ghana today can feed the whole of West Africa. Yes, still, government in, government out, we have failed to really take advantage of the potential of these 5 northern regions. The previous administration promised the people of the northern region the Pualugu multipurpose irrigational dam, where $12 million were paid to contractors and nothing was being done. They promised 1 village, 1 dam. As a result, to meet the issues of drought in the northern region, so that farmers can get water to harvest all year round. Unfortunately, we haven't seen any economic benefit to that policy, to the farmers. And that is why our mothers would have to travel all the way to Burkina Faso. And indeed, a very northern, far northern aspect of Burkina Faso called Tiato, where there is issues of insurgency and terrorism and insecurity, just to bring tomatoes to the plates of Ghanaians. David, I think that this death could be avoided if we had pragmatic policies in place and real infrastructure to tackle agriculture in this country. Another aspect is also to do with the cost of farming and how farmers receive capital. I'm glad Bernard Mona is a farmer. He knows very well that he cannot go and borrow from our various commercial banks, right, at that staggering double-digit interest rate and make a profit from commercial farming. No country on the face of this earth has been able to survive a double-digit interest rate on loans for commercial farming. It has never happened on the face of the globe. If you look at Vietnam, if you look at China, if you look at India, right, if you look at Thailand, all the banks that are supporting farmers are giving them a single-digit interest rate on their loans, and as low as 5%, 1%, 2%, 3%. But here you go and you have to borrow at 18%, 20%. And that is the reason why cocoa farmers are also suffering. Because they go and borrow from these rural banks at huge interest rates. When Cocoa Board pays them, the monies in which they will use to amortize the loan, what is left for them is peanut. And that is why the life of a cocoa farmer is nothing to write home about today. And that is why they look miserable today. And I think that it is time as a people, as a country, to see how best we can tap into the fortunes of this country. We are blessed with a lot of arable lands. I am glad that the Thelma Oil Refinery is back on track. Crude oil has a byproduct that can be used to manufacture fertilizer, inorganic fertilizer. Why isn't government, I want to see government taking some steps in place under the aegis of their 24-hour economy or industrial policy to see how best they can use the Thelma Oil Refinery as a strategic vehicle to manufacture inorganic fertilizer and supply our various farmers, including cocoa farmers and other peasant farmers, so that we can have a more fertile ground, so that the yields of crops would increase, and indeed we can have a year-round harvest for our farmers. So, David, the issue in Sahel would take diplomacy, and indeed mature diplomacy. If you look at the dictates of our constitution, it states that Ghana's foreign policy will be centered on the pillar of positive neutrality. Positive neutrality. And that is not what Nana Addo Dankwa and Mahmoud Bawumia did previously. They went as far as the United States to do kokonsa on our neighbors. Meanwhile, it is a house issue which we could have solved amongst ourselves. but to go and snitch to the instigator of that problem, the people that cause the same problem that we are dealing with. Because like I said, if Gaddafi was not ousted, this Sahelian crisis would have been mitigated.
Right.
But unfortunately, we have to deal with it. So it will take the collective efforts of each and every country within West Africa and Africa at large to combat the menace of terrorism. And indeed, we should also try as much as possible to leapfrog the dreams and aspirations of our people.
Right.
Where there is poverty, there is always a fertile ground for recruitment for terrorists.
Right.
Because people want to survive.
Right.
And so if governments know this, then they should take pragmatic steps to eradicate or reduce poverty within their various countries.
Yeah, Cameron Mona, I have heard from, different quarters that it looks like Ghana, we're sitting on a time bomb. Time bomb in the sense that if you look at our, we've been talking about this, our borders are porous, right? From Togo right down to Burkina Faso. All the, the border areas are porous. And that's where people argue that, look, we're sitting on a very, very dangerous time bomb that we need to react. With the example of Burkina Faso, what should be our posture, going forward in dealing with terrorism that has come closed door, to us?
Good morning to you, to Dr. Ramsey, to Alhaji ABF Husseini. And let me use the moment to celebrate the unison of faiths, that it appears that all faiths are fasting within this period. The Christians, the Muslims, they all started the fasting on the same day. The Muslims would finish their fast, and the Christians will continue for 10 more days. That notwithstanding, it indicates that there is some convergence of faith. And I hope that that convergence will lead to greater national assertion, continental reawakening, and global justice for the marginalized. That since everyone is within this period of Lent and Ramadan, we will have a renewal of our spirits and our hope, so that in the end, it's amazing though, as has always been the case, that it appears that there were contradictions as to when the Muslims will start. Some people started 3 days ago. Some others started yesterday. And you keep asking the question, why are we always differing? Because I heard some people in Wa say they didn't see the moon. And so whatever was adduced or said by the people of Accra, they didn't see it. And so on and so forth. I will just hope and pray that we will be able to take this. But there are scientific ways in modern times to spot the moon. And we should be able to do so without these kind of problems. Because today, as President Mahama has vowed, if there is going to be a holiday for our Muslims, you give a holiday today, and then only one portion of the society will celebrate. And the other portion says that, no, it's not our holiday, we'll also have to wait. I'm hoping that we'll be able to reconcile these differences in dates of starting the Ramadan in particular, so that it will make things easier for our national progress. The issue of Burkina Faso and the commentaries that have been run make it very difficult for some ones of us. I listened to a former Minister for Defense, Dominic Nitiwul, who went to the extent that Ghana's glorification of Burkina Faso triggered this terror attack on Ghanaian traders. I don't know whether I shrank. My size reduced, and I was overfilled with tears. But then when I reflected, I'm like, this is the Minister for Defense, former Minister for Defense, whose advice to President Akufo-Addo made President Akufo-Addo to go to the United States of America to meet with the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and to tell the Anthony Blinken that Burkina Faso was engaged in some misdeeds, virtually reporting Burkina Faso to the United States of America to come and chop off their head. So I was not surprised, though, that such a comment could come from my kid brother Dominic Nitiwood. But it betrays brotherliness. Burkina Faso and Ghana share very long history of togetherness and of even relationship. There are Moshis in Ghana, and we'll say that the capital of Moshis is Burkina Faso. There are Mamprusis in Burkina Faso. There are Kusasis in Burkina Faso. There are Frafres. There are Dagara people. Right? There are Mobes. There are, you understand? That is to tell you how we are intertwined. If you go along the borders, you will see that when there is an activity, a funeral, a marriage or whatever, somebody will tell you that I'm moving to go, my brother or my cousin is marrying. They walk. They walk. If you go to Hamele, they walk to the other side. Their brothers, their cousins are there. It was just in 1844 that some Europeans sat in Berlin and took a pencil and crafted what they call the map of Africa. And from there they traced that this portion belonged to France, this portion belonged to Germans, this portion, and they divided or partitioned Africa. In dividing, they did not factor who is who. So when you go, you see Dagara people in Burkina Faso, and there are Dagara from Lora to Nandom, all the way down. So to say that we are over-glorifying ourselves is the reason for which there is this attack. It just lowered the belts of intelligence. The standard is reduced. And I shudder to think that Nitiwood was our Minister for Defense. But why in this day and age will Ghana be driving from Accra, from Kumasi, from Tamale to enter into Burkina Faso to go and buy tomatoes in this age? Why? Tomatoes. That a Sahel country is able to turn water, to use irrigation, to develop dry season gardening. And we sit here. We sit here in the excavation for road construction. They turn it into a dam of some sorts to be able to generate water or to hold water and use that water to cater for their animals and to use it also for gardening. What do we do? That annually they will tell us that the Barre Dam of Burkina Faso is overflowing and they cannot contain the water, so they want to spill it. And the government of Ghana will have to go and plead with Burkina Faso that please spill it in certain minimum quantities so that it doesn't overflow. Along the Bagri Dam, that route, that we could also do check dams. So when the water is overflowing, you harvest it. Or what is this? This one too requires some magic. Just harvest that water.
We need a referendum on that.
Just harvest it. The worst is that Nitiwul's government went and took some several millions of dollars to come and construct the Kpalugu Dam, where they intended to develop hydro, so that we get mini irrigation around the line. They ate it. I hope my English is permitted. They ate the money.
They chop it.
Do you understand? They chop it. Then today, because of your misgovernance, we are compelled to go out there. If the Kpalugu Dam was put in place and led to the irrigation, there will be more vegetables, more tomatoes in Ghana. That possibly a chunk of the people who go to Burkina Faso will just go to Kpalugu and buy tomatoes and bring down south. They will not have entered into that territory to be attacked by terrorists. But this same Nitiwul, and President Nana Akufo-Addo subjected our nation into an unwholesome military pact with the United States of America, where if you read the 19 clauses of that pact, there is no benefit to the people of Ghana. I'm sure you all remember. There were 19 clauses. None of the clauses was a benefit to the people of Ghana. It was to enhance the American interest. One of the clauses said that we should have a dedicated runway, that US planes can land and take off, and no Ghanaian official or security will be able to inspect what is going into Ghana and what is going out of Ghana. That is the class of intelligence. The same way we were to give them a radio spectrum free of charge. In the same document, US citizens or soldiers who come into Ghana, right, can drive anyhow without license. And when they commit a crime in Ghana, we have to go to the United States to go and seek justice there. And worse is that as part of that agreement, they said that they were going to use the Ghana base as a transit. Transit to where? Transit to where? So today, if the people of Burkina Faso have any accusations to make, it should be that our acceptance of the United States of America to use our country as transit could be the reason for which these fermentations are coming on. So Ghanaian soldiers are watchmen and watchwomen parading around the military base at the airport, proximate to the presidential VIP. That is where the US military is. What goes inside, no Ghanaian is able to know, but Ghanaian soldiers will have to be parading to be sure that when they come out, they are safe. That is the Nitiwul, who says that we are glorifying. And indeed, if that is the case, where I said we will over-glorify, because they will kill all of us. What President Traore is doing in Burkina Faso, look, I love it. He is asserting true independence and the spirit of what the black man can do. True independence. As we speak today, Traore has not gone to the IMF. He has not gone to the World Bank. He has not borrowed from any place. Burkina Faso's advancement is unparalleled. Go opposite the term, what do we call it? Ghana National Petroleum Authority, GNPC Corporation, GNPC. Just directly opposite Atema, Burkina Faso is constructing a cement factory. Burkina Faso is constructing a cement factory in Ghana. So that the cement they need, they can get it from Ghana and easily transport it to Burkina Faso. That is what leadership is about. And when that leadership is affecting the Europeans and the Americans, you have puppets like Nitiwul and his team saying that no. Distance from Burkina Faso. President John Mahama, on this occasion, I pat your back. That you accept your son or your kid brother and to work with him to see how we can mold a better Africa. Finally, this one that has happened to many Ghanaians is a call to the Minister for Agric that let's stop the too much talk and action. We have spoken about dams. It's just like COVID-19 that eventually told us that food, there's no AI version of food. And that you must produce food. When COVID-19 started, countries were refusing to sell their food. Not so. If you were depending on the importation of food, those countries started hoarding because we didn't know how long food would, the COVID-19 would last. And therefore, this particular incident tells us, I'm not sure that Ibrahim Traore will send his soldiers to come and attack Ghanaians, given the relationship that exists between us. The people that are there are the creation of the West. Right. Let me sympathize with the families.
Right.
And in particular, those who survived. That theirs is just by the mercy of God. And let's see how we'll be able to normalize situations and not allow anybody who is anti-Africa but all the time favors the imperialists, that they should suffer in shame.
Right. Alaji.
Yes. Let me say, when you make the vulture your delegate, you don't show it the villages again. The competence is already there. So the eloquence of Bernard and my small boy Ramsey,
The Moshi man.
yeah, the Moshi boy. Moshis don't have grown up.
Oh, they are like the
no matter how grown a Moshi man is,
well,
a boy.
there's always a Frafra girl or a Frafra boy.
The Moshis don't have men; they are boys. They are boys.
Moshi boy.
Yes, I think you've done a lot of justice to it. I just want to make just two preliminary comments on this before I actually give a little bit of my take on this. First, Bernard made mention of the Islamic, sometimes the differences in the days of the commencement of the Ramadan. And why does that happen? You may look at doctrinal differences and others, but you know, there are Muslims who, in obeisance to the Quran and the injunctions of the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, try to follow things to the core, and we are enjoined as Muslims. I think the big malams are there. I don't want to inflict my ignorance. I'm not an Islamic scholar, so I don't want to pretend to be one this morning. But I know that there's something that indicates to us as Muslims. And it says that Salasi the Yawman Autisha will issue the Yawman. You should try and see the moon, sight the moon, and fast, and begin the fast, and sight the moon again as a basis, as a guide for you to break the fast. So after 29 days of fast, first you have to sight the moon. to herald in the Ramadan.
Alaji, some people will never sight the moon. I know some people they will never sight the moon.
Yeah, but that is what has happened. After 29 days of the month preceding Ramadan, you have to sight the moon either on the 29th day or the 30th day. If you don't sight it on the 29th day, Bernard, on the 30th day you have no excuse, you have to fast. So you cannot run away from the sighting of the moon indefinitely. It's a must that it must happen. And so sometimes some people say they didn't see the moon yesterday. Some people say they saw the moon yesterday. And sometimes you can have it in Saudi Arabia and some of the Gulf states, and others say they have sighted the moon. But even in that region, in some Islamic states and others, they will still say that they didn't see the moon. And on the basis of that, they will not fast. So sometimes that is where these differences are coming in. So I don't think that. But Bernard, your second one is the one that touched me. One F. Especially the likes of the former defense minister Nitiwu. No wonder governance sank to the lowest ebb in the history of our country. If you have people like this, these were people who were at the helm of affairs advising or supposedly advising the president.
Above in the sky.
My brother, they say if a man will give you a hat, look on his head. And Bernard, to amplify your point, you left out a very important point. Because when we're talking about sovereignty and independence, and David, let us not lose sight of the fact. A man who has his mouth in another man's kitchen cannot assert his independence and freedom. That is why when he mentioned, you see what Burkina is doing now to try and make sure that even a dry country as they are able to produce food and others for even agriculturally better endowed areas. I'm sure we are coming there soon with some innovative policies from the agri sector now. But it doesn't surprise me that the likes of Nitiwu will talk like this, because you see, you don't see a guinea fowl in flight and the offspring will be walking. Then these are the offsprings, these are the descendants of a political tradition, the old UP, not the new ones that are coming out. That's the old UP. That's why they want to modify it.
Let me.
The old UP where
Nitiwu unfortunately was a PNC. And when Bin Chambers, let me support him. When Bin Chambers,
what he was.
When Bin Chambers was living, we went and we even printed posters for Nitiwu. Then when he left our headquarters, Dambuche was told that is a very good candidate. They called him and gave him pickups, and he went and jettisoned our posters.
He defected.
And went to MPP to go and contest the by-elections.
That's what defectors can do.
So of course, traitors.
So for me, the bottom line, like I said, is that these are descendants of people who sent a delegation to the Queen to tell the Queen that why are you in a hurry to leave us? We are not ready to govern ourselves. We are not ready for independence. And so to jettison Ghana's independence. In fact, Ghana would have been independent as far back as 1954 or 56, according to the legendary Osaje Fusa political calendar and works that he had put in place. But for the disruptive effects of these kinds of people, who would always instigate the colonialists to come and take control of our territories and our resources so that they can pick the crumbs from the floor. So no wonder they will profess such advice. But I would want to start first by labeling in clear terms what happened in Burkina Faso with the terrible tragedy that was inflicted on our people as a blatant act of terrorism. You can't describe it anything more than a blatant terrorist, callous, inhumane act to deprive people of their lives unjustifiably without any cause. And so I would want to take this opportunity to commiserate with the families of the bereaved and to express our deep-seated sorrow at what has happened. People who were believing that they were looking for their daily bread and going just to do normal commercial acts without offending anybody, no provocation, came up against this. It's a very sad story. But worse still, for you to have in our hollow chambers of parliament, people attributing this to good relations between Ghana and Burkina. I cannot see the quality of discussion. It's a very unintelligent, hollow self-serving argument to make that this thing happen because of good relations between a country and another. Even subject to giving ordinary other, does that make sense? Can a sensible person get up and make this kind of argument? So David, I wouldn't say much. I've been in parliament for at least 12 years. I know sometimes what some people can say, unfortunately. But I don't think that this represents a noble house where you have people who make qualitative, very principled, cogent arguments in support of not just the dignity of our parliament, but the sanctity of African freedom and independence that all of us are struggling to get. I want to indicate clearly that this type of argument can only be self-serving, and coming from them, nobody should be surprised. Like I just said, these are the descendants of a political tradition. If you know them, you will know what their thinking is. If they had their way, we will still be under colonial domination, because they say that we are not yet capable of looking after ourselves. When Kwame Nkrumah said that we prefer self-government in danger to servitude in tranquility. Look at the difference between the two. So these are colonial lackeys. They are appendages of the imperialist order, who think that they can hang on to the coattails of the colonial master and pick the crumbs, rather than taking the destiny into their own hands and doing the same things that the colonial masters themselves do. Build their own economies and sustain a better life for their people. There can be no substitute, David, to us taking our destiny into our own hands and working to make conditions of life better for us and for our people. That is the only salvation. And so for me, sad as this spectacle is, it raises the issue of what do we do as a country? As has been pointed out, for 8 years, they wasted 8 years, including Ndidu as the Minister of Defense. Did he build any serious security matter in this area? This jihadist thing was present when the MPP was in power. We have had a number of interventions from security agencies in parliament, warning us about the deterioration of security at our borders. Long before, 8 years back or more, when he was defense minister, what did he do? Zilch.
But he came up with the Accra initiative.
No. You see,
you remember that?
He went reporting.
No, do you remember that initiative, the Accra initiative also?
You are talking about talk. I'm talking about doing. Did. I'm not talking about talk.
It was implemented somehow.
And resulted in what?
Anyway.
So David, you see, the sweetness of the pudding is not the aroma. It's in the eating. Even when you can't even have good relations with your neighboring state, you think your security can be better. Even with good relations, you can see what has happened. If the relation was worse, can you imagine what it could have been? But for the good relations Ghana has had with Burkina Faso,
yeah.
Because take note, David, these traders have been going. I'm sure if we were asked to even ask for the count, you can't count the number of times they've embarked on such journeys until this thing happened. Okay? Yeah. So it tells you that there has been some security along the line that has given protection all this time. And maybe there's a slippage or something and something happened. That is a product of the good relationship crafted between the two countries, between our two leaders, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama and Ibrahim Traore, whom I have a lot of respect for. because this is a young African patriot leader grasping with the difficulties of development in Burkina Faso, a drier Sahelian territory, now exporting, and these tomatoes is not only coming to Ghana, it goes to Cote d'Ivoire
as well.
Yes, as well. And these are from the agricultural standpoint better endowed territories, countries than Burkina Faso, like Bernard pointed out. They are making judicious use of water bodies, creating water bodies for the purposes of doing irrigation farming. Look at our territory. If you start from even in our northern region, all the way to the water bodies that you meet.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you will see dozens of our youth and others sitting idly that there are no jobs.
Of course, there are no
Where
jobs.
it is possible to anchor them, encourage them, give them the means to be able to tap these water bodies to put it to productive use. Is that not what is happening? You just mentioned Balugu Dam. Somebody or some group of people have blown $12 million. You can't see one trip of sand. $12 million. We are more than 1 year, and that is why sometimes some people look at this and they get angry. That we have to step up the tempo of accountability. That people, and even today, those people have the impudence. After blowing these amounts, stealing some of these monies, doing all this, they have the impudence to now turn the attack on you.
Yesterday, they argued that if you have evidence,
yes,
go to court.
Yes, David, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That you see, if you cure a monkey of his toothache, it will visit devastation on your corn farm. And I'm saying that the tempo of accountability must be accelerated. Nobody has an immunity from accountability in this country. And so even without them, this is the bravado of a cat before a tiger. They are only saying it, but I want to believe it's coming. And I want to urge that all institutions that are tasked with the responsibility of exerting accountability must rise up and work assiduously. If we have to do 24 hours, and that's why now the passage of the 24-hour bill into a law, because it's not yet law until the president gives his assent. For me, is going to be very, very important. So that if our justice system is now going to work 24 hours, we should have courts that can sit 24 hours. Some will sit in the morning to the afternoon, afternoon to evening, evening to the following morning. Oh yes. We must get the justice system to sit like that. We must have prosecutors to work 24 hours. Some will do this, some will do that. And very soon you step up the pace of and get people to account for the
because now it looks like they've thrown the ball into your courts.
My brother, that's
if
what
you
I'm
have
saying.
Any case against any of their membership, go to court. You know, they said they are tired of, you know, the allegations and the hearing.
That's why I'm saying that. And that's why I'm saying that it's a bravado of a cat before a tiger. So I will say without any iota of hesitation that even before anybody even throws a challenge, it's a bounden duty. The good people of this country gave us the ringing mandate to ensure that the accountability is exerted.
Right.
And now we say that it will be exerted and must be exerted.
Right.
If we have to exploit the full length of the judicial and prosecutorial system to make sure that people who have caused these atrocious acts are held to account. Can you imagine what will happen if the Balugu Dam by this time was in place? How many livelihoods it can give salvation to? Right. How many jobs it can create? How much it can contribute to even because when you export, David, you are going to get money, and not just money, foreign exchange into the country, so that what you would have used to go and buy yourself to import, you will save and lessen the pressure on the city. The city has done very well in the last part, thanks to the finance minister and his team and the Bank of Ghana governor and others. Yes, but we all need to do our part,
right,
to ensure that this country is returned to productivity. It is only production and productivity step up that can salvage us. I want to say this, that this dastardly act that was committed, far from weakening the resolve of the two leaders, that's President Mahama and President Traore, must galvanize them to enter into a security arrangement where around our borders and others we can strengthen the forces. If we have to even place permanent
troops,
security people along our borders and others, and do constant patrols. Because these jihadists, as has been pointed out, look, the same Western countries that are making noise today, they were responsible for what happened in Libya. The Sarkozys and others who did it, and later on the imposition of a no-fly zone to cripple the Libyan leader Gaddafi from fighting this destabilization. It's what we are having on our hands today. After the collapse of the Libyan government, tons and tons of arms got into the Sahel, into the hands of non-state actors. And when non-state actors are better armed, sometimes even more than the state itself, that is a veritable threat to safety and security in the sub-region.
Right.
So I have no doubt in my mind that we need active collaboration rather than shunning them. The likes of Nituwu, they went to advise that this alliance of surveillance, we should go militarily at them. You remember there was even an attempt to do that, and you know the flames that West Africa would have been caught in. But thanks to the sanity of leaders like President Mama, and they said, well, look, let's also engage on the sidelines, and even went ahead to appoint Kenneth Gbovolati as his emissary to this place, and we are having that collaboration. I want to think that that sort of collaboration is important in the fight against these jihadists.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to other matters as well. We want to take a look at the determination made by the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, in the sense that those petitions that were sent, you know, for the removal of the electoral commissioner and her two deputies, and in fact the special prosecutor, the decision is that there was no prima facie case, you know, against them. You know, what this whole thing means is that they did not meet the minimum threshold. The petition didn't meet the minimum threshold, you know, for any case to be established against them. But it looks like the law has spoken, yet the people are in doubt, right? So that's how I judge it. The law has spoken, yet the people are in doubt. And I will start with you, Comrade Bernard, on this one. Are you shocked about the outcome?
I am perplexed. Completely dumbfounded at the outcome of the Chief Justice. But I can appreciate that the Chief Justice thinks that by these decisions they will be able to elicit some cooperation and probably image redemption from a bastardized institution, that's the judiciary. The cooperation they are seeking is with the minority. When in the not distant outcome, the minority had stated their revulsion about Justice Bafubone. They did not participate in his appointment meeting with Parliament. They made all manner of unsavory remarks about the person Justice Bafubone. And not long after, Justice Bafubone has been embarking on institutional relationship building. And when he announced that he was going to go to Parliament, the minority came out to say he was on a thank you tour and that they were not going to participate. Within this period, it appears that Justice Bafuboni is trying to please the minority. And I'm very scandalized.
These are wild allegations.
It appears.
Right.
It appears. I hope my English is not bad. It appears.
Right.
This Justice Bafuboni was appointed by President Kufuor. So if there was any linkage,
Appointed as far as we've made it clear.
he was appointed
Some people think that he was appointed
to the
as
Supreme
justice.
Court
The Supreme Court, yeah.
by President Kufuor. Aladi, whilst he was at the High Court, the Committee for Joint Action, of which I was an integral member, with our protestations and what have you against government, there were many decisions that when you were going to court, they were tailored to Justice Bafuboni, and he appeared to rule for government. Go and check. Including the issue of notifications and the understanding of the Public Order Act. Because the Act says notify the Ghana Police Service. Not so. And when you notify the Ghana Police Service, you have met the tenets of the Act. That is Bafuboni rule that no, notify them means that you have to wait for their approval, their permission. If the Constitution wanted or the Act wanted to say so, it will say so clearly. Furthermore, there was a ruling, the same Justice Bafuboni, who said that the police could go to court ex parte, meaning without notification or knowledge of the affected party, and the court will rule in favor. Later, this decision has to be changed. That no, you have to come on notice to the protesters because they want to do something. You say no. Why are you coming hiding clandestinely to come?
Yeah.
And this followed when myself and Mahama Yarga, under the same Committee for Joint Action, the police went ex parte, secured an injunction on our protest on 6th March 2007. Then we went to court and met Justice Pega. I'm sure you remember Justice Pega. And Justice Pega also granted a stay of execution. So at that point, it was a challenge because a judge superior had granted a stay of execution of your injunction. We did all these things. I have never criticized Justice Bafuboni of being an MPP. I see him as a Ghanaian who is performing his lawful duties. The MPP, just because Justice Bafuboni was nominated to act when Jethro OTOKUNOR mishandled her office and eventually was nominated by President Mahama, they say that he is NDC and they will not have anything to do with him. The issues that we are talking about is about crass incompetence and partisanship displayed by commissioners of the Electoral Commission. That President Mahama, in his campaigns, has been livid about the conduct of Jean Mensah, Asari Bosman, and Apiahine. No one is pleased with what they were doing. They said that in order to come out with election results, they use Coral Draw. Coral Draw, Alaji. And not what do we call it, SL. Or any other way of, accumulating results. They use choral draw. This is an electoral commission that in designing presidential nomination forms, not first time though, there is a template. They will be making mistakes, making errors, and yet they will disqualify people, including me, for administrative errors, not because you have breached any constitution. This is an electoral commission that political parties can ascertain election results that they conducted 72 hours before the electoral commission can now begin to make pronouncement of the elections. Dr. Mahmoud Baumia conceded victory to President Mahama, and it took the electoral commission 72 more hours to now come and tell us that it is finished. Then, Chief Justice, you say that there is no prima facie case. In the case of Charlotte Osei, it was just, what do we call it? Procurement breaches, which would be criminal in nature and have nothing to do with their capacity to do their job. A prima facie case was determined for Charlotte Osei, Sule Amadou, and others to be removed by Akufo-Addo. In this case, we are not even talking about procurement breaches. We are talking about capacity to handle the job of the Electoral Commission. Chief Justice, no. No. You cannot use this matter to elicit cooperation and support from the MPP in Parliament against integrity of our election, our electoral processes. You know, let me leave it.
Let me leave it. Yeah. I can understand, Bernard, because if you have been at the forefront of seeking to make and mobilize people for the betterment of this country, and you go through these frustrations, sometimes it can get you emotional. I respectfully, as law-abiding Ghanaian, think the courts are the place where disputes should be amicably resolved. But David, that by no means insulates the courts from accountability. And that by no means also means that decisions rendered by the courts are infallible. And that all the time decisions are made, justice and the interest of justice is served. Sometimes some decisions are even counter to the interest of justice and justice being served when the wrong decisions are made. And I respectfully think this decision, I must admit, I read only snippets of what was put out as the statement of the case, and the legal maxim is that justice is in the bosom of the judge, and so if he has a bosom that emits very questionable decisions,
justice, you think this one is questionable?
I disagree with it. I don't want to put any tag on it,
right?
But I want to disagree with it as far as the matter that was brought against these people for accountability. David, I'm sure you remember the governments have been saying that if you don't steal, you don't run in the market. If you don't fear that you know thorns have been put in your path, you don't fear to walk barefooted. You remember Jean Mensa during the cross examination, and you remember the Supreme Court in the 2020 electoral petition. and I want to say here, that we in the NDC went to court against the decision of the Electoral Commission in declaring Nana Akufo-Addo president in the 2020 election, because we believe not only was it fraudulent, that decision was unconstitutional. And that is why we went to court. If we thought there was no case, why did we go to court? We went to court because we thought there was a case. And I still believe that. And the legendary Chachi Chukata, and I salute him all the time, and others advanced cogent arguments. You remember, Jill Mensah refused to go into the box. What was she running away from? She could demonstrate her competence and integrity about the declaration of the result. She ran away from the box. You know, in the run-up to the thing, the court had indicated that Chachi Chukata wanted this matter brought out earlier, and he was advised that no, we have not gotten to the bridge yet. He should wait. When we get to the place, they will give him the opportunity to cross-examine. You remember that? And the same court, when we got there, and Chachu wanted to cross-examine her, what did the court say? That she cannot be compelled to enter the box. The same court. I'm sure you are aware. This is the same Supreme Court we are talking about, in whose bosom lies the judgment. And you say, David, these are not questionable. The competence of Jill Mensah and the Electoral Commission, never in the annals of our country's history have we had an electoral commissioner or chairperson of the Electoral Commission declare one result 5 times. I'm sure you are aware. I think it was on December 10th that she came to declare the first verdict. When you took away Techima Saf and others, and the computation was made, according to the result that was there, Nana Akufo-Addo never got 50% plus 1 when those results were computed. And that is why we in the NDC, led by the illustrious Chachi Chukata, argued that it was unconstitutional. Our constitution says that you can only be declared president when you get 50% plus 1 of all the votes. These matters were not interrogated. On the contrary, they were asking NDC to bring its results. Does the NDC compile results? It's the Electoral Commission. We can keep copies of our decision for the purposes of also calculating our data and declaring, getting to know how the declaration was made. But this crass incompetence on the 10th, I think on the 10th of December, when she first made that declaration, you saw that the next less than 24 hours, she came to change the figures. And the figures change and change and change again. If this is not crass incompetence, what is it? We have had, apart from this very glaring act of incompetence, we had so many of them in the inability of the Electoral Commission to organize district level elections, which necessitated their postponement. David, I'm sure you are aware of that. Okay? This is an Electoral Commission that was heavily engaged in procurement breaches. Some of the procurement never even went before the National Procurement Authority. Public Procurement, PPA, Public Procurement Authority. Okay? There were new machines that were allegedly in the custody of the Electoral Commission that she jettisoned. And in order to make money, they went and bought new machines without even using the appropriate procurement channels. This one, if you consider what they did to Charlotte Osei's one, pales into insignificance, considering procurement breaches that happened under Jill Mensah. So many, not even biometric devices, many other things at the Electoral Commission. She was neck deep in procurement breaches. That one, nobody has found anything. The people of SAL is Santrophi, Akpafu, Lolobi, and Lipe. If I got it wrong, correct me.
That's correct.
In the Volta region, for 4 good years, there was active connivance between the MPP and Jill Mensah and the Electoral Commission to prevent the people of this area, the SAL that I'm talking about, Santrophi, Akpafu, Lolobi, Lipe. They were deliberately disenfranchised and prevented from exercising their mandate in 2020 to select a representative. That's why the creation of that was first. The people of Guam. David, that is a crime. Go and read the Constitution of this republic in many articles. It is a crime. Sovereignty of this country lies in the people of Ghana. And the people of Ghana have an unfettered right to determine who rules them in elections. So for anybody who undertakes deliberately and willfully to disenfranchise thousands of Ghanaians commits a high crime and is unfit for public office. The perpetrators of this disenfranchisement of the people of Satrofi, Akpafu, Lolobi, Lipe, today they are still sitting in office at the Electoral Commission, at the helm of affairs. Nothing has happened to them. They have not been held to account for the crimes they committed against the people of this area. Now you have people who are so politically tainted. They are so politically exposed, who were brought to the affairs, to the helm of affairs. Of course, you have mentioned this. I am not going to. I'm just going to take two classic people. Two of the deputies. Bosman was a Tescon patron of MPP in Legon. David, if today or tomorrow you just hear an announcement, ABF Hussein has been made the deputy chairman of the Electoral Commission in charge of elections. Operations. So that I will handle elections. So if I'm going to handle elections, will people and MPP people they hear that ABF Hussein has been made deputy? You think that ab initio anybody is going to be comfortable with that? David, politically exposed Bosman made a decision, and not only that, he demonstrated his disdain for the NDC at one point by making a declaration that we in NDC are a threat to democracy. So if an Electoral Commission deputy chairperson can label a political party as a threat to democracy, does that not betray a sentiment of disdain that he has for that political party? And for that matter, he cannot do fairness by that political party. David, is this not also of concern? The same as Apiahini. He even said that he was at one point in time he played some open role I think in the defense of the MPP. David, if you look at it, you are talking about situations where the Electoral Commission in the run-up to the 2020 elections declared results that were heavily contested in many parts of the country. I'm sure you saw the chaos that came. After this, they had to go back again and take some other elections. And in the recent election, you saw the chaos that erupted in many areas where they had to take the contest out of the constituency area to go somewhere and go and declare the elections. So David, there are many acts of incompetence, willful manipulation, and even sometimes bordering on fraud by the Electoral Commission, that if citizens raise questions against this and they are thrown away in this manner, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth. David, you don't count your chickens until they hatch from the eggs. But this one, I can say without any iota of doubt, many Ghanaians, not just in the NDC, are bewildered. And they cannot come to terms with how this verdict was arrived at. I want to believe that sometimes even court rulings, when a court rules on a matter, it is obliged in the public interest to give what do they call it? Reasons for the ruling. Yeah. In this particular matter, are we going to get the reasons for the ruling? How His Lordship, the Chief Justice, Bafuboni, arrived at this decision. I don't know whether we'll be given an explanation to help us, those of us who are unlearned. I know that even the learned people, fortunately, I'm sure all of us here are not learned. The learned people, even themselves, want the ruling to enrich their understanding of the law.
When you speak to some of the constitutional lawyers, the argument they make is that the prima facie, the petitions did not reach that minimum threshold of the, the Article 164 holders stated misbehavior.
Yes, David,
the petitions didn't reach that minimum threshold.
David, you just heard me. Here.
The misbehaviors are too.
You just heard me here.
Yes, I heard you.
You are not convinced that this constituted misbehaviors.
Unfortunately, it's not for me to judge.
David.
Yeah.
So, what is the threshold? Are you talking about figures? It didn't reach 80% or 70%.
So that's where people are now calling for more transparency in the dealings of such matters.
Exactly.
Let's know the reasoning behind.
Is there an objective threshold, or the threshold is determined by the person who is making that determination? Who makes that determination about reaching the threshold? Otherwise, you say that the threshold that the committee of 5, in the case of the removal of the Chief Justice, okay, how did they, in their case, how did they determine the threshold that it reached for the Chief Justice to be removed? And in this particular one, the sole determinant,
who determines the threshold?
Who determines the threshold? Determine that the threshold was not reached. Look, David, they have fundamental questions,
right,
in this matter that we need to get to the bottom of.
Right.
But I am comforted in the fact that the matter is not concluded. David, anybody,
can raise,
including myself, can prepare another petition, and Ghanaians are listening. Ghanaians, anybody who has cause to believe that justice has not been served, and that the current crop of officials at the electoral commission don't deserve to be in office, can prepare fresh petitions and submit for the removal of this crassly incompetent and compromised core at the electoral commission. The fact that these people are still in office, David, they have no sense of shame. If Jim Mensah, Bosman, and appear all the people that have been mentioned had any dignity, sense of dignity left in them after committing all these atrocities and atrocious acts, they should have left office even before anybody demanded their exit. That they are still in office today is an affront to all of us, to ensure that the right thing is done.
Right.
And I want to tell those who are legally minded and patriotic enough to ensure that the right thing is done, must revisit this matter. This matter is by no means concluded, David.
Right.
Until the right thing is done.
The right thing.
You must chase away the hyena before you blame the goat.
No.
Well, David, it has come to our notice about this matter and its development and how the public views this issue. I think that I will look at it from two different lenses, right? One that looks at how far or how impetuous our judiciary has grown to be independent as compared to the judiciary we had under the SY administration. And that's why if you look at the Mo Ibrahim Governance Index, under the SY administration, our judiciary autonomy declined by 50%. Today, I am seeing a judiciary that is being able to, withstand political pressures. That is a cause for, belief in our democracy. That is something that we must really celebrate for our democracy. Because prior to the elections, I sat on this platform and I called for the heads of Jim Mensah, Bosman Asari. I also sat on this platform to condemn the OSP and said that his outfit was not giving us value for money. And that if you look at the cost to benefit analysis of his office, we have gotten nothing as a country in terms of the fight against corruption and ensuring that there is institutional accountability. Today, what the CJ has done, I think that it's under the remits of the law and upholding to the rule of law. And that for a very long time, we have seen a new form of CJ that is highly independent and is a man of himself. I will not sit down here to criticize Justice Bafo Boni. You know, there's an African saying that he who moves mountains starts by what? Moving smaller stones. David, I have been able to test the leadership of Justice Bafo Boni. I remember last year, I took a petition to him through his office. I didn't contact him. I didn't contact his secretariat. Nobody. Front door. I got an action and I got a response. Unlike the petition I took to the current IGP, who I don't know what, he's doing there in the first place. But anyway, this is another matter to be discussed. So, David, I think that Justice Bafo Boni is a man of himself. And I do not think that he has shown that he cannot be manipulated or succumb to political pressures. That is indeed some form of relief for me as a consummate Democrat and the one that believes in democracy. Because if you look at the likes of the former CJ, who some people have called her the incoming woman organizer of the MPP.
That's
for what I said, some people, not myself.
That's unfair.
I didn't say myself.
I know, but that's
Honorable, did I say I said it? Or no, I said some people.
I know. But even you passing that comment.
But at least we are informing. That's why we are informing.
No, it's a bit unfair.
No, but I'm saying that, David, it's not me. If I said it, I would have retracted. But this is not me. I said some people have called it the incoming women's organizer of the MPP. Because we saw under her regime that cases that were pro-MPP, especially to do with the issues of vacancy of parliamentary seats, and how she adjudicated on the matter impetuously, showed you how she was in bed with the MPP and how she allowed herself to succumb to political pressure. Prior to the elections, we had big wigs from the NDC, the likes of the current chairman Johnson Asedu Ketia, and then Fifi Quote, the general secretary, all come out to call for the heads of the EC chairperson and her deputies, and that if they had the power and the mandate given by the people, they will make sure that they take her out of office. And of course, you need a CJ to establish a prima facie case under Article 146 of the 1992 Constitution, and then establish a committee to inquire into the matter and then send the determination to the president to effect his constitutional mandate. If you look at what is coming out from the office of the CJ, it suggests to us that the threshold, as intimated by Honorable Ebi Ofuseni and yourself, has not been met. The petitions taken to his outfit did not have enough evidence, because the name of this game is evidence.
But even with prima facie, you don't look for evidence. It's just on the surface of the petition.
Yeah, but I'm saying that, that aspect to trigger, they did not meet the threshold, and you have to update or attach some form of evidence, something to suggest that.
What is that threshold?
Well, the threshold is.
And who determines that threshold?
The CJ.
And how does you determine the threshold?
Under the confines of the law.
Yes, I'm saying that. How does he determine the threshold of the
so it's based on the petition and what has been submitted and some of the evidence. Yes.
Right, but who determines the threshold of that stated misbehavior?
I'm saying that in spite of the body of evidence, it's just like saying that you can go to court advance all the evidence that you can. Some of it may be very cogent. If the judge, in whose bosom is the law, decides that you have no case, you have no case. It doesn't mean that you did not actually produce evidence. But if it's, for instance, a biased judge, whose mind was even made up before even the case was brought before him, so there always is room.
Yes, but
for to question the judgment of the judge himself.
That's right, but
whether the threshold is he decides that even the threshold will not be met, it will not be met.
So the big question is who determines the threshold?
It's the CJ, but that's why I'm saying that we will come to that, and that is why CDD espoused or intimated issues of some governance lapse. So this is part of the issues that we are discussing. But I think that the lawyers will also say that the evidence should be beyond reasonable doubt. So that is also another layer to this subject matter, that whatever petition they give, whatever evidence they submitted, it should have grounds beyond reasonable doubt. And so, based on the determination of the CJ, it suggests to us that it did not meet the threshold and therefore it's been dismissed. But that does not mean, as Honorable ABF intimated, that no citizen of this republic can further go ahead to petition again the president for their removal. Indeed, it has happened that, well, this issue has been dismissed, but maybe somebody will take another petition which has some core evidence in it, and a prima facie case can be established. If you look at what the MPP said about this person we are talking about, look at what happened with the ruling of the Pandai seat, right? When he went to the High Court, they ruled in favor of the NDC. But when he went to the Supreme Court, the MPP were scared, and they ranted and made all sorts of allegations about this same person. But the law prevailed, and then they quashed the ruling of the High Court, and the Pandai MP is still in post. So what I'm saying is that, David, these issues that we are discussing today is healthy for our governance and strengthening our governance going forward. That is why, if you look at the constitution of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, we have proposed that there ought to be layers in place, and a framework, a new legal framework that seeks to institute how we are going to appoint heads of various institutional bodies. It should not be on some form of executive authority, as seen in our constitution today, but in place of our unicameral parliamentary system, we in the United Party think that Ghana deserves a bicameral parliamentary system that would act as a non-partisan buffer with the legislative authority to appoint heads of independent constitutional bodies. And this second chamber we are talking about should replace the Council of State. The era of the Council of State is over. The Council of State has become a protege of the executive, and I do not see its relevance in today's Ghana's contemporary democracy.
Right.
And so the second chamber which we are proposing, which would be made up of non-state actors and non-political actors, should be the ones that would appoint heads of independent constitutional bodies, so that today nobody will make references that a certain president appointed this person in a certain year, so definitely he is an MPP judge or he's an NDC judge.
Right.
But we need an independent judiciary. And what I'm seeing, looking at all the big shots and the big wigs that have enormous influence in today's government, have not been able to succeed in influencing the Chief Justice to establish a prima facie case. And I want us to celebrate this, that you have the likes of the NDC chairman, the NDC general secretary, and all the stalwarts within the NDC, right, call for the heads of these people. But Justice Bafo Boni has allowed the law to lead.
But the question is legal correctness right? So is legal correctness enough if citizens don't trust whatever decision comes out of that? And I'm asking that at the back of the issues that you are raising, that is legal correctness right when at the end of the day the citizens won't even trust that those decisions that comes up?
Well, David, there are two sides.
Because you are trying to prove the legal system right,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes.
From what you are saying.
Yes. And you see, that's why partisanship has its effect in our democracy and in shaping narrative, right? All what is being said on this table, right? There are some merits to it, but at the end of the day, it is backed by partisanship, right? Those that have called for the heads of the former CJ, even ourselves, I sat on this platform to call for a head, and I'm not going to shy away from that. I called for the head of the EC chairperson whatsoever, but of course, the petition has been taken. They did not meet the minimum threshold, and unfortunately it has been dismissed. I am not happy, but what I can say is that I want to celebrate the independence of our judiciary. This is what we need to understand here. That indeed, the CJ and the judiciary cannot kowtow to political pressure.
This is not what you call independence. This is acquiescing to minority dictates.
No, Bernard,
And
you see,
that's why I keep. I want to ask that question.
But because that's what I'm saying, that there are two sides. There are two sides of the coin.
No, is legal correctness enough in the situation where people don't trust the outcome? Because we are trying to prove the law right.
That's right. And indeed, that is why it is very important for the CJ's office to communicate what merited the dismissal.
That's what I asked for.
But I'm saying that they're going for it. But I'm saying that testing the leadership of Bafo Boni. And that's why I reference it to a quote, an African quote, that he who starts by moving mountains starts by moving smaller stones. I have been able to test the leadership of Bafo Boni, and I think that he is a man of credibility. He is a man of competence, and I believe that Justice Bafo Boni will not allow himself, right, to be bulldozed by political influence and powers.
Should we have going forward? Should we have such decisions explained? Because right now it looks like nobody knows what led to that decision.
So if you don't even know, people are not convinced.
Should we, going forward, have a policy where such decisions are tabled before the public?
I think it will strengthen.
And even maybe perhaps look at it, maybe set up a body, where one man will take the heartbeat of 35 million Ghanaians, right?
Yes, David. So I think that going forward, we need to bridge the gap in communication so that it really strengthens our citizenry understanding in such decisions, right? Because when you go to court and there's a judgment, there's a paper. The judge will give you a judgment paper, and you can read the judgment and why the judgment has been given. So indeed, I think that going forward, we should be able. I don't know if because this is high level, but no matter the level of the case, there should be reasons given out. I concur to that. But what I'm also saying is that Justice Bafo Boni has shown great leadership since coming into office, or even acting as CJ, and I have been able to test his leadership, right, from a neutral perspective. And I can say that Justice Bafo Boni cannot be bulldozed by political influences and forces, as we've seen under CJ OTOKUNOR.
Right. I see you are itching to come.
You see, like you say, when the ruling is here, the reaction is different.
That's right.
And that is what some people, I am not in any position to pass judgment on that. But that's where people think that, maybe one of the things is to placate the other side. So that the impression will be created that, you have a certain level of fairness, but not necessarily doing justice as the matter would dictate. So you would have, I'm sure you would have heard all manner of noises.
There are different arguments.
If a different outcome had been announced. And so the other side, especially coming in the wake of some other rulings since he became Chief Justice, the Pada has already been mentioned by the Supreme Court and some other issues. We tend to give them impression in some other. I'm not saying that may be it, but judicial independence. If everybody is erect and you alone you stand and something is deposited there, who put it there?
Independence of the judiciary.
That's the point.
So, all right. Unfortunately, we can't do the 24-hour economy. Or maybe perhaps you can just do some 2 minutes and then, you know, I'll start with you, Comrade, on this one. Just 2 minutes, then we wrap up. On the 24-hour economy, it's been passed into law now, so it's left with the implementation.
I see that as a policy, and I don't see why policies should go to Parliament to be configured into laws. I think that we are over idolizing some of these programs. 24-hour economy is to lead to job creation, is to lead to more employment and possibly income to the people of Ghana. And by extent, I have seen that particularly in the Wa enclave, there is dispute as to where to site what they call the 24-hour economy. And the 24-hour market is supposed to have a school or kindergarten of some sort there.
Yeah. Clinics,
there's supposed to be a clinic there. There's supposed to be a police station there, and many amenities that have to be captured within.
Hostel facilities.
Yeah. So that certainly means that that place will be a very busy place. That is just a policy. Why that policy will go to Parliament to be passed into law, I don't get it.
Fortunately, Alhaji is here. You help us understand.
Then you have to ground many of these things, especially as you are using the taxpayers' money, and you are also ensuring that you are putting institutions in place.
Alhaji, Alhaji, my argument is that it's going to be construction, right? It's going to be multiple institutions that are going to be involved. The Ministry of Health will have to determine. The Ministry of Education will have to come in. The Ministry of Roads will have to come in. The Ministry of Local Government will also have to participate. It's a multi-institutional thing. Do you understand? And once you establish a secretariat, the secretariat takes it up and coordinates all these ministries. How it should become a law. I'm not debating the value of the 24-hour economy. But why it should become a law, I don't get it. It's like the same way we did with National Youth Employment Agency.
Yes. Do
you understand? When we have the National Youth Authority, then Akufo-Addo came and created the National NEIP.
When you especially
we are saturating this nation with many bureaucratic processes,
yes, and without sounding an apologist for bureaucracy and bureaucrats. There are some of these institutions that we are creating that are going to subsist on public funds and others that ought to be anchored on law. If for nothing at all, to give clarity and real anchorage, to anchor them properly on a sound footing. They have to be have the backing of the law. So I think that among others, the law will spell out clearly what they can do, what they cannot do, which areas of operation. To give more, that's what I said, to give more clarity and anchorage to the policy government especially. But I'm very happy that this thing has been gotten over, and I think President Mahama has signed it, so now we can call it a law. And David, one of the most important issues of our day is unemployment, and especially youth unemployment. That is a critical factor, and I have always said that, especially those of us who are political actors on the front line, we have a bounden duty to address this like it's an emergency, because the youth unemployment is a ticking time bomb. If you don't do something about it, especially political actors, and it gets to a crescendo, it gets to the end of the cliff, I can tell you that nobody is safe in this country. If we cannot find jobs for our youth, and one day rebellion starts on the streets and others, you cannot contain it. And so for me, I'm happy that President Mahama has taken the bull by the horns, and the 24-hour policy is no longer just a mere campaign slogan. I used to think that the MPP people, those who have been flawed by pregnant women in the marketplace, now championing their strength as macho people, saying that, oh, we have abandoned the 24-hour policy plank we campaign on so heavily.
Right.
I am fortified in the belief that not just the passage of the law, but the person put in charge, Honorable Gusitano, is known for a man.
Judging from what Comrade Bernard is indicating,
yes,
the fanfare is too much. We want to see action.
For instance, the markets that had to be constructed, the market issue was started making news. That 24-hour markets economy were to be constructed, right? When there was no law. What is this law actually about? No, I just think that is over-idolization of the issues.
Bernard, if you don't lick your lips, the hamatan will come. So you obviously have to make some little
I agree.
And manage. But I agree with you that we must make sure that we move as fast as possible into the practical implementation of the decision. And I have no doubt in my mind. That's why I was saying that I know Gusitano and his people and others. By now, not only is the blueprint ready, they have already initiated moves already. I know a lot of things where, for instance, in places where they have to do value addition, they have already started doing some work in getting some of those factories and others on the ground. And so I want to believe that they are going to hit the ground running. Right. And it will contribute significantly to offering employment and better incomes for our youth. Right. I think that tackling the youth is a critical imperative for all of us. And I want all of us to join in. I want to believe that we will not fail the good people of Ghana in getting this policy in place. And by the end of President Mahama's term, hopefully, there should be a significant dent on the large army of unemployed in the country, especially our youth, so that we can have a very stable environment.
Doc, take us home in about 2 minutes. Time is up.
Yes, David. The
133 formula.
1334.
The 24 economy policy, as many have misunderstood, is not about nightlife, but it's about economic productivity, right? And I believe that this government has the opportunity to change the fortunes of this country. I mean, what I see them do wrong, or what they've done wrong, was to cancel the 1D1F policy. The one district, one factory policy was a fantastic industrial policy created by Honorable Alan Tremartin. Unfortunately, due to the internal shenanigans and sabotage by the Akufo-Addo regime, that policy did not see its realization as it was supposed to be. But of course, I mean, there are certain gains that we must celebrate as a country. That today we have the capacity to now assemble about 125,000 vehicles a year. We have Hyundai, we have Nissan, we have Suzuki and all that. So what I want this government to take into consideration are three things: issues of land, issues of labor and capital. And that is why there's a need for a law. Because if you do not consolidate the existing legal framework of the labor unions, right, issues of land and I mean issues of employees and their appraisal systems and how you are going to tackle them, then it becomes an issue. As for policy, you can put it out there, but if you don't streamline it as an act and law, then it becomes a problem, because then you need something to stand on to defend your rationality during your implementation stage. So I think that the law that was passed is very relevant. Now we are proposing that the government should put in some fiscal incentives, at least for banks that commit 10% of their profit after tax to support the 24-hour economy drive, because we need the banks. Under the previous administration, we saw how our banks were collapsing, that thousands of our young people lost their jobs due to what? The banking sector cleanup exercise, where 9 billion cedis was needed for that exercise, yet they expended what? 25 billion cedis. So David, what I want to tell this government is that if this, one of the key indicators for this success of the 24-hour economy is that one day we will drive on the streets of Accra and we will not even see any hawker on the street of Accra. That is a signal that the 24-hour economy is working. That indeed we will reduce our imports in this country and have some form of import substitution in the various consumer goods that we use in our economy. That is also another key signal for the success of this economy. So we wish them well, but we want them to reinstate the one district, one factory policy so that it would also drive economic productivity.
Right. All right. So our time is fast, but Alhaji, I see you are itching to say something. Can you do that in a minute?
I just wanted to
in a minute.
let Ramsey know that the NDC welcomes very positive contributions. The fact that the 24-hour, the 1D, 1F was scrapped, I'm sure he himself can bear eloquent testimony to the haphazard manner in which it was done, underfunded. There was no, even those who were holding the resources politically were not committed. Like he himself said, they sabotaged it, they didn't even support it. So in that state, they really could not come up with what was intended. But I just want to indicate that we in the NDC, when we say this thing is a mail, we are holding it by the balls. We are committed to making sure that it will succeed, because it is our bounden duty to work to generate jobs for the teeming mass of our youth, and also ensure that economic growth already. If it will rain, you see in the sky. You can see the economic turnaround that is coming. This will further contribute to making the economy better.
Cutting it because my time is up. Let me just read one or two, messages, then we'll be done. The ruling by the Chief Justice that there is no prima facie case in the petition seeking the removal of J. Mensah and the deputies is a defining institutional movement. While I maintain that Madam J. Mensah and her team ought to be shown the exit for the controversies that have trailed their tenure, I am nonetheless encouraged that the due process has prevailed. That's from Daniel Akpaliok from Sandema. Good morning, David. Okay. Alhaji Haruna Ashama says, David, Bafoboni is just trying to satisfy the minority because they don't believe or recognize his appointment, so he has to come out with no prima facie case against the EC. All right, so that's what you think. Just this last one, and then I'm done. Good morning, Pan-African TV, host and panelists. The current ruling by Justice Bafoboni on the EC chair, deputies and SP, though unsavory for most citizens, may have far more reaching effects than people have expected. For instance, won't this single ruling signal to our Americans that there is true rule of law and fair judgment and judgment? So Ken Oforiatta should be extradited? I believe so. That's from Felix.
No, I like that. That's
Simple. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
That's what I was saying, that our institutions, especially the judiciary now, has been strengthened in the face of most discerning Ghanaians. So yeah.
Steve, last one. Stephen from Kwabenya says, how can a rational human being, an MP for that matter, open and... All right, please, let's keep it decorum. All right, Doc, thank you so much for passing through. Comrade Bernard Mona, thank you so much. And Alhaji Ebi, thank you so much for making time to join us this morning. And to all our Muslim brothers, once again, it's...
But me, I always fast, Alhaji. It's not about.
Look, I can tell you, fasting is very, very good. Look,
it is.
Your body constitution,
Alhaji, you know me, I
transform more than you can believe.
I am on my third.
All right,
day.
so I'll be waiting for. I'll be fasting alongside. I'll be fasting alongside. Look, I'll be waiting for my rice. So I'll be fasting alongside. All right, so that at the end of the period, I'll have my rice. All right, thank you so much, comrades, for passing through. Thank you also so much for doing the watching. God willing, we'll see you same time next week. Bye.